How they mocked his stutter, then froze when he stepped into the championship ring. Alex Morgan slouched in his seat, trying to make himself as small as possible. At 15, he wasn't particularly tall, just 5'7", but he was soft. Around the middle, with rounded shoulders and arms that seemed too long for his body. His mousy brown hair fell across his forehead, partially hiding eyes that darted nervously around Westlake High's crowded cafeteria. It was his 3rd week at the school, and already he'd earned a reputation. Not the kind anyone would want. Alex had a stutter, not a mild one that only appeared when he was nervous, but a persistent, stubborn impediment that made even the simplest introduction an ordeal. Can I sit here?" he asked, gesturing to an empty seat at a half-filled table. The group of students looked up, exchanged glances, and then the largest boy, broad-shouldered with a varsity jacket, smirked. Sure thing, stutter boy," he said, exaggerating each syllable. The table erupted in laughter. Alex recognized him immediately. Brandon Cole, captain of the wrestling team, with 2 state championships under his belt according to the trophy case Alex had studied in the main hallway. Brandon was always flanked by his 2 lieutenants, Derek, a wiry track star with a perpetual sneer, and Mason, who was almost as big as Brandon, but seemed to exist primarily as an echo chamber for his leader's jokes. Alex clutched his lunch tray tighter and moved on. This was Westlake High School, the 3rd school he'd attended in 2 years. His father's job in corporate security kept them moving, and Alex had long since stopped trying to put down roots. Just keep your head down. Just get through the day. Nobody needs to know. That thought had become his mantra. Nobody here needed to know that 3 nights a week for the past 8 years, Alex trained at whatever local MMA gym his father could find. Nobody needed to know that before his voice betrayed him with its halting rhythm, he'd won junior championships in 2 different states. Nobody needed to know that his father, a former UFC fighter turned security specialist, had trained him since he was 7 years old. And absolutely nobody needed to know that Alex was currently ranked 2nd nationally in his age group for amateur mixed martial arts. He found an empty table in the corner and sat alone, picking at his cafeteria pizza while keeping his eyes down. It was easier this way. The first month at Westlake followed a predictable pattern. Brandon and his friends seemed to have a 6th sense for finding Alex, in the hallways between classes, during gym, even at his locker. "Hey, Morgan," Brandon called out as Alex was packing up after final period. "Did you finish the English homework?" Alex took a deep breath, trying to control the familiar tightness in his chest. Yes. Great. Then you won't mind if I borrow it?" Brandon held out his hand expectantly while Derek and Mason flanked him, arms crossed, identical smirks on their faces. Alex had been through this before. Fighting back made things worse. Drawing attention made things worse. His father's advice echoed in his head. "Choose your battles wisely, son. Not every provocation deserves a response." Silently, he pulled out his English homework and handed it over. "Good boy," Brandon said, ruffling Alex's hair roughly before walking away, high-fiving his friends. Alex stood there, his face burning with humiliation, hands clenched into fists at his sides. In his mind, he could see exactly how it would play out. The foot sweep that would put Brandon on the ground. The quick transition to a submission hold. He could feel the phantom sensation of applying just enough pressure to make Brandon tap out. But he unclenched his fists and closed his locker instead. The cafeteria was where things usually got worst. There was something about the public nature of it, the audience of students, that seemed to inspire Brandon to new heights of cruelty. "Look who it is, stutter boy," Brandon called out as Alex walked past their table with his tray. "Where you going? Come sit with us." Alex hesitated. Sometimes ignoring them made it worse. Sometimes engaging made it worse. There was no winning strategy. "I'm good, thanks," Alex said quietly, attempting to move past. Brandon's foot shot out, connecting with Alex's shin. The sudden pain and loss of balance sent Alex stumbling, his tray tilting. The milk carton slid off first, followed by his plate of spaghetti, creating a spectacular crash. The cafeteria went silent for one beat, then erupted in laughter. Alex knelt there, surrounded by the wreckage of his lunch. Tomato sauce splattered across his white shirt like a crime scene. He could feel every eye on him, hear the ripple of laughter moving through the room. "Sorry about that," Brandon said, not sounding sorry at all. "Maybe if you could talk right, you could walk right too." Something inside Alex shifted then, not enough to make him react, not yet, but enough to plant a seed. This can't go on forever. "Mies," Patel, the lunch monitor, finally approached. What happened here? Alex tripped, Brandon said quickly. Clumsy guy. Ms. Patel looked at Alex questioningly. This was his moment to speak up, to tell the truth. But what would that accomplish? More attention, more problems. I tripped, Alex confirmed, his voice flat. He spent the rest of lunch period in the bathroom, scrubbing at his shirt and trying to ignore the hollow feeling in his stomach from both hunger and humiliation. 2 months into the school year, Alex's father noticed. Your training's off, David Morgan said, as they wrapped up a session in their garage, which had been converted into a small but well-equipped home gym. Your mind isn't in it. What's going on at school? Alex toweled off, avoiding his father's gaze. Nothing. David Morgan was not a large man. Alex had inherited his average height, but he had the compact, efficient build of someone who knew exactly how to use his body as a weapon. More importantly, he had an uncanny ability to read people, a skill that had served him well both in the octagon and in his current profession. Bull, he said simply, talk to me, son. And so, reluctantly, Alex did. He told his father about Brandon and his friends, about the daily humiliations, about the homework, theft and the cafeteria incident. Throughout the recounting, his father's expression remained neutral, though a muscle twitched occasionally in his jaw. When Alex finished, David sighed. Why haven't you stood up for yourself? You know how. You always said to choose my battles. Yes, but sometimes the battle chooses you. David placed a hand on his son's shoulder. I never taught you fighting so you could become a bully yourself, but I never intended for you to be anyone's punching bag either. If I fight back, it just gets worse, Alex said, voicing the fear that had restrained him so far. There's fighting back and then there's standing up for yourself, his father replied. Sometimes all it takes is showing them who you really are. You don't have to hide that part of yourself. Alex considered this. For years, his stutter had been the thing everyone noticed about him, the thing that defined him in others' eyes. His fighting ability was his secret self, the core of confidence that no amount of mockery could truly touch. He'd kept those worlds separate, but maybe it was time for them to collide. There's our regional tournament next month, Alex said slowly. Here in town. David smiled, understanding dawning in his eyes. Perfect. Time to show Westlake High who Alex Morgan really is. The next day at school, Alex walked differently. Nothing obvious. His shoulders were still slightly hunched, his eyes still often on the floor, but there was a subtle change in his gait, a coiled readiness that hadn't been there before. He'd made a decision. Brandon noticed immediately. Bullies were predators after all, attuned to the subtlest shifts in their target's behavior. What's got you so perky today, Morgan? He asked, leaning against the locker next to Alex's. Get some special speech therapy? Alex looked at him directly for perhaps the first time. No, just in a good mood. Brandon blinked, taken aback by both the direct eye contact and the calm response. Usually Alex either mumbled a reply or said nothing at all. This was different. Well, we can fix that, Brandon said, recovering quickly. He reached for Alex's backpack, a familiar move in their established dynamic. Alex didn't flinch or pull away. He simply said, I wouldn't. Something in his tone made Brandon pause. Not a threat, exactly, but a certainty that was new and disconcerting. After a moment of hesitation, Brandon laughed it off, but he withdrew his hand. Whatever, freak, he muttered, stalking off with Derek and Mason in tow. Samira Chen, who had the locker next to Alex's, had witnessed the entire exchange. That was different, she commented, looking at Alex with newfound curiosity. You finally standing up to those jerks? Alex shrugged. Just tired of it. Aren't we all? Samira said, closing her locker. Brandon's been insufferable since he won state last year. Like being good at pinning other sweaty guys to the mat makes him king of the school. Alex smiled slightly. Wrestling's a good sport. Maybe, Samira conceded. I prefer sports where people don't smell like gym socks. Anyway, good for you. About time someone didn't cower. She walked away, but Alex noticed her glancing back at him with an appraising look. For the first time, he wondered what his classmates might think of him if they knew what he could really do. The following week, posters appeared around Westlake High announcing the Southwest Regional Junior MMA Championship. Alex put his name down for the sign-up sheet in the athletic office, ignoring the skeptical look from the secretary. You want to compete in the MMA tournament? She asked, clearly doubting that the quiet, slightly chubby boy with the stutter was serious. Yes, please, Alex said firmly. Have you ever done this before, honey? It can be pretty rough. I've competed before, he said simply. The secretary shrugged and added his name to the list, probably assuming he'd be eliminated in the first round. Alex didn't bother to correct her assumption. Word traveled fast in a high school. By By lunchtime, Brandon had heard about Alex's tournament sign-up. He cornered Alex in the cafeteria, his expression a mixture of disbelief and predatory delight. "You signed up for the FIFU fighting tournament?" Brandon's voice carried across several tables, drawing attention. Alex continued eating his sandwich. "Yes." "Why? You want to get your ass kicked publicly instead of just in school?" Alex took his time chewing and swallowing before answering. "I like the sport." Brandon threw his head back and laughed. "Oh man, this is too good. Guys, Stutter Boy thinks he's a fighter." Derek and Mason joined in the laughter, and soon half the cafeteria was watching the show. "I'm going to come watch you get destroyed," Brandon said, leaning in close. "First match, I bet. I want to see what you look like with even more to cry about." Alex met his gaze steadily. "You should come. It'll be educational." Something in Alex's calm certainty made Brandon's smile falter just slightly, but the bully recovered quickly, ruffling Alex's hair roughly before walking away. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, Stutter Boy." The day of the tournament arrived crisp and clear. Alex warmed up in the designated area, going through the familiar routines that centered his mind and prepared his body. Around him, other young fighters were doing the same, stretching, shadow boxing, drilling techniques with coaches. David Morgan watched his son with quiet pride. "You ready?" Alex nodded, his movements fluid and precise as he worked through a series of complex strikes. Here in this environment, his stutter seemed to fade. His body spoke a language of controlled power that required no words. "That's them," Alex said suddenly, nodding toward the entrance. Brandon, Derek, and Mason had just walked in, along with several other Westlake students who had apparently decided this would be worth watching. Among them, Alex spotted Samira, who gave him a small wave when she caught his eye. "Your fan club?" his father asked. Not exactly," Alex replied, the stutter returning slightly now that he was speaking. David followed his son's gaze immediately, understanding the situation. "The one in the varsity jacket?" Alex nodded. "Well," David said with a small smile, "I think they're about to get a surprise." Brandon and his friends found seats in the bleachers, clearly there for the entertainment value. They pointed at Alex and laughed among themselves. "This is going to be hilarious," Brandon said loudly enough for nearby spectators to hear. "That kid can barely string a sentence together. He's going to get demolished." The tournament director called the first matches, and Alex moved to his designated mat. His opponent was a tall, lean fighter from a gym in the next county, a boy with a solid reputation and an aggressive style. As they faced off at the center of the mat, Alex felt a familiar calm settle over him. This, unlike school, was where he belonged, where he knew exactly who he was and what he could do. The referee signaled the start, and everything else faded away. Alex moved with a fluidity and precision that seemed impossible given his apparently soft physique. He evaded his opponent's first rush, countered with a crisp combination, and followed with a perfectly timed takedown. On the ground, his technical superiority was even more evident. Within 90 seconds, he had secured a submission, and his opponent tapped. The small crowd applauded, many of them familiar with the local MMA scene and aware of Alex's reputation within it. But from the section where the Westlake students sat, there was stunned silence. Brandon's mouth had literally dropped open. As Alex stood and bowed to his opponent, he caught Brandon's eye and gave a small, confident nod. No smirk, no gloating, just acknowledgement. "Yes, this is who I really am." The rest of the tournament proceeded like clockwork for Alex. He advanced through the brackets with methodical efficiency, his technique crisp, his strategy flawless. With each victory, the crowd from Westlake grew, as students texted their friends to come witness what was happening. By the time Alex reached the finals, nearly 30 Westlake students had packed into the venue, including several teachers who had heard about the quiet transfer students' unexpected athletic prowess. Brandon hadn't left his seat once, his expressions cycling between disbelief, shock, and something approaching awe. Next to him, Derek and Mason had fallen silent. Their usual snickering commentary dried up hours ago. The final match was against the defending champion, a formidable opponent who had won his previous matches with aggressive power. As they met, at the center of the mat, the contrast was clear. The champion all visible muscle and swagger, Alex still looking somewhat soft and unassuming until he moved. And then he moved. For 3 intense rounds, Alex demonstrated what years of dedicated training looked like. His technique neutralized his opponent's strength advantage, his timing disrupted the champion's rhythm, and his conditioning proved superior as the match wore on. In the final minute, He secured a technical submission that had the crowd on their feet. When the referee raised Alex's hand in victory, the Westlake section erupted. Students who had never spoken to him were cheering his name. Samira was jumping up and down, high-fiving the person next to her, and Brandon Cole sat motionless, staring at the boy he'd tormented for months, seeing him truly for the first time. Monday. At school was different. Alex walked through the hallways to whispers and pointing, but not the kind he was used to. Students who had never acknowledged him before nodded or gave him thumbs up. A few even asked for tips about training. Samira caught up with him at his locker. "That was the coolest thing I've ever seen," she said without preamble. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone you're basically a ninja?" Alex smiled, and never came up. "Well, it's definitely come up now. Everyone's talking about it." She hesitated, then added, "Brandon looks like he's seen a ghost every time someone mentions your name." As if summoned by his name, Brandon appeared at the end of the hallway, with Derek and Mason. There was a moment when their eyes met Alex's, and a hush fell over the nearby students, all of them anticipating what might happen next. Brandon approached slowly, without his usual swagger. When he reached Alex, he stopped, clearly uncomfortable but determined. "So," he said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued, "you're actually really good." Alex nodded. "I am. You could have fought back, any time. It wasn't a question." "Yes." Brandon's face flushed with the realization that all those months Alex had chosen not to hurt him, despite having every capability and reason to do so. "Why didn't you?" he finally asked. Alex considered the question. "Fighting is for the R-ring," he said simply. "Not for school, and anyway, winning that way wouldn't have proved anything." Brandon nodded slowly, processing this. Then, to everyone's surprise, he stuck out his hand. "I was a jerk. I'm sorry." The hallway went silent, Brandon Cole apologizing. It was unprecedented. Alex looked at the offered hand, then at Brandon's face, seeing genuine regret there. He took the hand and shook it firmly. "Fresh start," Alex suggested. Brandon nodded, relief evident in his expression. "Yeah, fresh start." As they stood there, an understanding passed between them. Not friendship exactly. Too much had happened for that, but a mutual respect that hadn't existed before. "You should join the wrestling team," Brandon said suddenly. "Coach would lose his mind if he saw what you can do." Alex smiled. "Maybe I will." 6 months later, Westlake High. School added another trophy to its case, this one for the state MMA championship. The team photo showed a diverse group of athletes, including a smiling Alex Morgan in the center, flanked by teammates who now knew him not as Stutter Boy, but as their captain. His speech therapist said his stutter had improved with his confidence, though it would likely never disappear completely, but that was okay. Alex had learned that his voice, however it sounded, was worth hearing. In the cafeteria, his usual table was no longer in the corner. He sat with a mixed group that sometimes included Brandon and his friends, sometimes Samira and her study group, and always anyone who needed a place to belong. "You know what I still don't get," Samira said one day as they ate lunch. "You let them bully you for months when you could have destroyed them at any time." Alex thought about it, formulating his answer carefully. Sometimes the strongest thing isn't fighting back," he said. "It's knowing you can, but choosing not to. And so sometimes the only way to really stop a bully is to show them who you really are." Brandon, who had overheard from the next table, nodded in grudging agreement. "Well, I'm just glad the real Alex Morgan finally showed up," Samira said, smiling at him. Alex smiled back. The real Alex Morgan had always been there, waiting for the right moment to step into the ring. And some battles, he thought, remembering his father's words, choose you. The trick is knowing which ones are worth fighting and how to win them without losing yourself. Now, if you liked this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support us. Your subscription is very important to us. We need your support, so please subscribe and leave a comment telling me your opinion. Besides that, it's not over. Yet there's one more case for you to watch playing on your screen now. Click on it and I'm waiting for you. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.